people who are susceptible to this kind of thing. And I'll tell you what happened. It sums it up pretty well. I was taking part in a health fair, this was some years ago now, actually here in Albuquerque. And I had my table set up with all my information laid out. And behind me on the wall was a banner with the name of my practice, Mind Magic Hypnotherapy. And this lady walks by, and she stops cold in front of my table. And she looks at me, and she looks up at my banner. She looks back at me, and her eyes narrowed, and she almost hissed at me, "Work of the devil." I walked on by. So this person obviously didn't know that hypnotherapy has been approved as a therapeutic modality by the American Medical Association, AMA, since 1957. And actually by the BMA, the British Medical Association, since 1953. Big
Wow.
Brit. I have to throw that part.
Well, you should. That's a little bit longer.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think medical professionals are in the habit of approving satanic rituals. So that's a good thing to know. Incidentally, most religions have also accepted the fact that hypnosis can bring about long-lasting, tangible benefits and have no problem with supporting it. The Roman Catholic Church was actually amongst the first to recognize and accept hypnosis back in 1957, the same year as the AMA. And most other religions, including Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, have also accepted hypnosis and have no problem with their members taking advantage of its benefits. And as further proof of its efficacy, here are the results of a comparative study that was carried out in 2007 by American Health magazine and reproduced in the Psychotherapy Journal of the American Psychiatric Association in 2018. Again, these are both
93% recovery after 6 sessions. Wow.
I personally have never seen or have hardly ever seen anybody for more than 6 sessions.
Wow.
No matter what their issue might be. Hypnotherapy works very fast. There might be an occasional, with stopping smoking, sometimes people need 1 or 2 more sessions to actually get to stop completely.
Mm-hmm.
That here, just so we guys are reminded.
Oh, okay.
That's nice.
Thank you. And I've actually got some printed out there on flyers if you
That's nice.
are interested in taking them.
I'm
But
already.
yeah, it's hypnotherapy works very fast. And it obviously costs a lot less than going to a psychoanalyst for 600 sessions.
Yeah.
With only a 38%
Wow. Wow.
Right.
turnout.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And behavior.
And behavior therapy is
It's not
big.
very
It's
high.
big. I mean, you hear about it a lot.
I know.
Wow.
So
I don't know what's actually encompassed in behavior therapy, though. I don't know what.
I don't either, actually,
Yeah.
to tell you the truth. I don't.
I'm going to find out. Curious. It's not.
So,
Huh.
so let me begin by giving you a simple explanation of what hypnotherapy really is and how it works. Hypnotherapy 101, if you like. So the mind is basically divided into 2 parts, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, well, we all know what that is. It's the part that makes decisions, what you're going to wear when you get up in the morning, what you're going to eat for breakfast, how you're going to deal with problems that you encounter as you go through your day. The subconscious mind operates very differently and actually does a lot of different things, including controlling your autonomic nervous system, like the beating of your heart, the fluttering of your eyelashes. But for our purposes, what matters is that the subconscious is where your habits and your emotions are stored.
Mm.
It works like this. When you acquire a habit, whether it's smoking, drinking, driving, tying your shoes, whatever, you first of all have to learn that behavior consciously. And once learned, it's then programmed into your subconscious. so that you can do it without thinking about it. That's what a habit is. When you're driving a car, you don't think, now I've got to put my foot on the gas, now I've got to brake, now I've got to look at the mirror. It's automatic. You've learned how to drive, and that learning has now been transferred to your subconscious, rather like programming a computer. And that is actually a very useful analogy, because like a computer, the subconscious mind doesn't rationalize, it doesn't evolve, it just does what it's programmed to do. And these habits are also reinforced by very positive emotional messages. Smoking helps me concentrate, relax, calm down. I need that drink to help me unwind at the end of the day. It's the thought of that French toast that gets me out of bed in the morning, whatever it is. So you're dealing with a very powerful combination of habit and emotion, both of which are based in the subconscious mind. And what most people don't realize is that the subconscious is 90% of your mind power. Your conscious mind is just that little itty bitty 10% that's left. So if you make a decision, a conscious decision, obviously, that you now want to stop smoking, for example, you have 90% of your mind telling you, no, you don't. Smoking's your best friend. It helps you relax, focus, concentrate. Whatever the messages were that you put there when you acquired the habit. And
Well, there's the big battle then.
there is the big battle
Wow.
that goes on between what you consciously decide you want and your subconscious telling you, no, you know what you want. Am I supposed to put all these up at the top?
I just thought that was a good one.
Okay, we'll leave that
Stay-
one.
It's completely up to you, but I thought that was a good one. The
Well,
other
we'll
one,
help
that
you.
is too. I like the visual.
Thank you, Viola. You're so sweet.
It was just a place to
No, it's
keep
nice.
reminding.
So trying to use that 10% of your conscious mind to change a habit is really a David and Goliath type situation, and the odds are not in your favor. And that's where hypnotherapy can really make a difference. Because what happens during a hypnotherapy session is similar to what happens when you're driving along a familiar road, for example. Your subconscious is doing the driving because you taught it how. Your conscious mind is thinking about what you're going to do when you get to where you're going, or the great dinner party you went to last night, whatever. The same kind of thing happens when you daydream or meditate. It's a similar kind of state to be in. And since the conscious mind has drifted off to some other place, the subconscious mind then becomes accessible for reprogramming, like reprogramming a computer, which it normally isn't if you're talking to a psychiatrist or a counselor, because in those situations you're dealing with your conscious mind, not your subconscious. So that's how hypnotherapy can change what's going on in the messages that you implanted in your subconscious mind in relation to habit. And so the messages stored in the 90% of your mind that is now sabotaging you can be replaced with messages that are consistent with what you want, so that you then have 100% of your mind working together to help you achieve your goals. So now let's take a look at some of the popular myths about hypnosis that can cause fear and apprehension and prevent people from taking advantage of its benefits. Most of them, again, are derived from Hollywood movies, where hypnosis is presented as some kind of strange spell that can be cast on an unsuspecting victim. If you're familiar by any chance with the Jungle Book movie, you remember perhaps the scene where Mowgli is hypnotized by the snake. And this is how,
It'll stay.
This is how hypnosis is typically represented, with eyeballs spinning. And that's how it was in that movie. Not the kind of thing that's likely to make people say, oh, that looks interesting. I think I'll have a go at that sometime.
Unless you're Viola. Oh, that's really pretty. Can we hang it?
I know it is cool, but it's a good caricature, and you're right. That's kind of what we all saw, right? Or depending on what, I mean, They still show that stuff. I
I
mean,
know,
they do.
I know,
The
because
Twilight
it's-
Zone is what I think about.
Because it's more interesting, it's more exciting and interesting than the truth and the reality of what actually happens. And hypnotists are also popularly portrayed as having a special power that allows them to exert complete control over their subjects. Again, this is something that they advertise in stage shows. You will obey. And it's easy to believe that if all that you've seen in stage shows. But as far as hypnotherapy is concerned, that's pure fiction. In order to be successful, the process has to be a partnership, entered into voluntarily with the purpose of reaching a specific goal. No one can be hypnotized against their will, and if somebody decides not to cooperate, then it just won't work anyway. And just so you know, I don't use a pendulum, swing in front of you.
Oh, man.
I don't use a watch.
I like the graphics.
I know.
You're getting sleepy.
Sleepier and sleepier. And I don't tell you you're getting sleepier. Sleepier.
Oh.
So hypnotists do not possess any special power which forces you to submit to their will. They'll simply guide you into a hypnotic state in order to reprogram your subconscious mind with carefully worded positive suggestions, consistent with what you want to achieve. Actually, one of the best definitions of hypnosis is something I found in the New York Times quite a long time ago, and it's this. Hypnosis is the epitome of mind-body medicine. It can enable the body to tell the mind how to react and modify the messages that the body sends to the mind. That's a pretty good description. So you may wonder how it is that stage hypnotists are able to make people do the most ridiculous and often embarrassing things. And the reason they can do this is because every person chosen to participate in a stage show is a willing volunteer. Nobody just gets randomly picked. They all volunteer. They want to take part. And the stage hypnotist selects those volunteers who are most eager to perform, since they are going to produce the best entertainment for the audience. These people also tend to be highly hypnotizable, which is actually a proven and accepted fact. Some people are more responsive to hypnosis than others. It's also true that hypnosis won't work for people who do not want to be hypnotized. Remember, you can't be made to do something or want something that you don't actually want for yourself. But that's not something I've ever come across, although it could happen if, for instance, a parent brought in a child who didn't want to be there. So, you know, that wouldn't work. But not wanting to be hypnotized is not the same as thinking that you can't be hypnotized. And that is something that I've had experience of. And it's actually kind of an interesting story, which I will tell you what happened. This gentleman came to see me, slightly older gentleman, very nice guy, who just wanted to lose weight. So we were talking about, he didn't know anything about hypnosis, how it could work, how it would work, and how it might affect him, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I actually don't think I could be hypnotized. And I asked him if there was some particular reason why he thought that. And he said, yeah, I'm a retired FBI agent. And I've been attacked and ambushed and stabbed and shot and attacked and all the rest of it. And I don't think I could switch off my awareness sufficiently to, you know, let go and be hypnotized. And I said, that makes perfectly good sense. I totally understand that. But a lot of people don't actually get there on the first session. So will you promise me that you'll at least try 2 sessions and before you make a decision about whether or not this works for you? And he agreed. So he came back for the first session, and sure enough, nothing happened. He didn't go into any kind of hypnotic state at all. And at the end of the session, he said, there you are, I told you I can't be hypnotized. So I said, okay, well, you did promise that you'd come back for a second go round. So he came back the following week, and that time he fell asleep. And he fell asleep so deeply that I actually left him sleeping for about 20 minutes just to make a point. And then when I woke him up, he was sort of a little bit sheepish but very pleased. And he said, oh, well, maybe I can be hypnotized after all. So he continued with the program. He did lose weight. He was very happy. And he continued to lose weight because he kept in touch with me afterwards. And on the last day before he left, he said to me, you know, you're really good at this. I could get you a job with the FBI. I said, that's very kind of you. I think I'll pass on this again. Makes me wonder what the FBI does with hypnosis.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, now that's scary.
Yeah.
Another popular myth is that you can be made to reveal secrets under hypnosis. This again is completely untrue, since, as I said, you retain control of your mind at all times, and you can never be coerced or persuaded to do anything that is in conflict with your own best interests or your own true nature. So I can't get you to give me the password to your bank account or credit card or anything like that. So, oh, that's the wrong one. See, I did get out of whack here. That's okay.
I think it was the one that's now in the very bottom.
Yes, I think so. Good.
We'll just make sure you have the right one.
No, that's not it bad. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll be all right. Found it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually one that I missed that I want to show you. So this is just think for yourself, do your own research, make up your own mind whether this is something that you think would benefit you. Don't allow yourself to be brainwashed by the propaganda. So there's a nice one here that proves the point that you cannot be made to do something that you don't want to do. You can't be told to do something that someone else wants you to do.
That's good.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. I love it.
Is that you, Viola?
Yeah, of course.
We all love
I'm like, well, if
tacos.
there's tacos at the session. You definitely tricked me into showing up for that.
So for those with no prior experience of hypnosis, there can often be some uncertainty about whether or not they were hypnotized because they don't know what to expect. And it's not uncommon for people to not quite get there on the first session, just like the FBI agent. There are inevitably many unknowns floating around in their minds the first time. What's she going to do? What's she going to say? What's it going to feel like? What should I expect to happen? The truth is that being hypnotized is far less dramatic and not nearly as exciting as Hollywood would like you to believe. And as I said, it's frequently compared to daydreaming or meditating. And in fact, we all pass through a hypnotic state every day of our lives when we fall asleep and when we wake up in the morning. That in-between stage is a hypnotic state. It's also a very pleasant and enjoyable state to be in. And most people are really reluctant to come back at the end of a session. It's actually not uncommon for people to fall asleep during a hypnosis session, but being hypnotized is not the same as being asleep. And the fact that you can hear words spoken during a hypnosis session can make those who are unfamiliar with the process wonder if they were in fact hypnotized. The truth is that you're both relaxed and very highly aware at the same time, when you're in a hypnotic state, your subconscious mind never sleeps. So even if you do drift off, it still registers every word that's spoken. People often usually find actually, that they can only remember some of what was said during a hypnosis session. And that's because the words were registered and stored, not in the conscious mind, but in the subconscious. There's also a belief floating around out there, again, mainly thanks to Hollywood, that hypnosis can be unpredictable or possibly even dangerous. Under normal circumstances, that is completely untrue, but there are just a few exceptions. A person who suffers from epileptic fits should never be hypnotized, because being in a state of complete relaxation could, I'm told, possibly trigger an epileptic seizure. The same applies to anybody suffering from any kind of psychosis, personality disorder, brain trauma, or mental instability. The truth is that hypnotherapy is simply not equipped to deal with disorders that have no connection with what people consciously want, and that may require medical or surgical intervention. And just to state the obvious, nobody should ever listen to a hypnosis recording when they're driving a car or operating any kind of machinery. That's pretty obvious, because you need to be fully in control in those kinds of situations. Like meditating, it's important to be in a safe, secure, quiet environment without any distractions, so that you can just safely zone out. Hypnosis can effectively be used for very many things, actually, from stress relief and overcoming fears and phobias to insomnia and pain control. One of the things that first got me interested in hypnotherapy was a very, very long time, many years ago. I saw a documentary about a woman in China who had a cesarean delivery with only hypnosis as her anesthesia. And I've even seen reports, believe it or not, of brain surgery being successfully carried out in the same way, which seems pretty extraordinary. And it's not something I have any desire to explore myself. I finally decided to focus on habits because they come in all shapes and sizes, and they affect many people. But the underlying principle is always the same, because, as I explained earlier, habits and emotions are stored in the subconscious mind. The strangest issue I've ever come across is something I encountered just a few years ago, and it was something I had never heard of before, called sleep eating. Kind of like sleepwalking on steroids, sleep eating. This young woman in her early 30s would get up in the middle of the night, walk downstairs, go to the kitchen, eat a whole packet of cookies, snacks, anything she could find, go back upstairs, go back to bed, and in the morning remembered nothing, had no idea of what she had done. And the chaos in the kitchen was the only thing that actually told her. And quite apart from being sleep deprived, this poor young woman, her teeth were also in a terrible state, as you might imagine. And this had been going on for years, and it was a really deep-seated habit, so it took a while to bring about any kind of change. She finally called me one morning in tears, saying that she had just had her first uninterrupted night's sleep for over 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the power of the mind is pretty extraordinary, and that has to be one of the most gratifying cases that I've had to deal with. And I still can't get my mind around how somebody can walk downstairs, go to the kitchen, locate all these things and eat them all, and go back to bed and not wake up, basically, not realize what they've done. It's quite extraordinary. Anyway.
It reminds me of sleepwalking.
Yeah.
People who do that, they have no clue.
Right. Well, it's an extension of sleepwalking. It's like I said, it's sleepwalking on steroids, sleepwalking, sleep eating. Very, very bizarre.
I had a cousin who sleepwalked when we were young.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, she spent the night, my mother would just be like, oh my gosh, because we always had a two-story, I grew up in a two-story home, so my mother would just be like on pins and needles if Karen was spending the night, because she'd make us sleep downstairs in the den. She was afraid she'd fall down the stairs.
Well, this was the other thing I thought, how can
Yeah.
you be asleep and walk down the
I
stairs?
don't know.
That's just.
She used to walk, she would walk outside at her parents'
Mhm.
home and walk.
Have conversations,
Yeah.
have their eyes open,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And then she'd go back to bed.
Mhm.
Yes, and then she'd go back in the house and nobody would even know because everybody else is asleep.
And did she know the next morning what she'd done?
I think it came about when, like her siblings would be like, Karen, you were up last night and you were outside. I don't know what you were doing, that kind of thing. Because they didn't know either. They're young and they're thinking, why is my sister outside?
Did they ever go out and try and?
She's out there by the hydrangeas. Mom, it's like one of
Did
those
they
kind
ever
of-
go outside and try and interact with her? And
I'm sure.
because I
Because she
wonder
was the
what would
youngest.
happen I mean, was she really asleep? I mean, I don't understand.
She
that.
was, I mean, I remember my mom and my aunt were both like, you have to let's make sure she doesn't sleep upstairs. Yeah.
People often ask me if I do past life journeys. And that is something that I did do for a number of years, but I've chosen not to for quite some time now. Because I really want people to experience fundamental changes in their lives and in their behavior so that they know that hypnotherapy really works. And if you go on a past life journey and come back thinking you were Cleopatra or Picasso in a past life, that isn't obviously something you can ever prove. And neither is it going to make any difference to your life now. I do very occasionally, I will do it as a last resort if everything else that I've tried hasn't made a difference. And I did have a young woman a few years ago who came to me suffering from a really extreme fear of water. It was so bad she couldn't even take a bath. And I tried all kinds of things to try and make a difference, and nothing happened, nothing shifted, nothing made a difference at all. So I said to her, how would you feel about going on a past life journey and see if there's something there that might be relevant to this fear that you're having? And she said, anything you think might work, might be helpful, absolutely, no problem. So I took her on a past life journey, and she went back to a past life where she was a sailor and drowned. Now, I don't care if she really had a past life and was a sailor and drowned. The interesting thing is that that's what her mind produced for her in those circumstances at that time. And it completely cured her.
It unlocked that
Yeah,
fear.
she had a reason, she understood where it came from, or she thought, what happened. And she was fine.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting. I chose to focus on quitting smoking and weight loss in particular because they are especially challenging and difficult issues for people to deal with on their own. Most people who go on a diet end up putting back all the weight that they've lost, usually plus a bit more for good measure. And all the many smokers who try and quit each year, apparently less than 5% succeed. And most people blame themselves. They think they're not strong enough, they're not motivated enough, they haven't tried hard enough, whatever it is. Whereas the truth is they're dealing with a situation that is beyond the reach of their willpower. And those two issues also resonate with me on a personal level because I actually come from a fat family and I struggled with weight issues for many years. And I was also married to a smoker, so I understand the issues involved there as well. And I'm also aware of the fact that habits in general and smoking and eating in particular get to you on many different levels, psychologically, emotionally, socially, and all these things need to be addressed in order for the habit to be successfully and permanently released. That's why my basic program consists of 5 sessions, because completing that process in just one session really isn't a viable option, especially for those with no prior experience of hypnosis. They're bound to be thinking something along the lines of, I'm going to walk through that door and I'm going to come back and I'm going to never smoke again when I leave. That's just too much to take on, to accept. And it's for that reason that smokers do not stop on the first session. The first session is basically an introduction, an opportunity for those unfamiliar with hypnosis to experience what it feels like and what it's really about. And they then spend the next week or so doing things that help them to become mentally and physically prepared to break from the habit when they come back for the next session. And when they come back to the next session, they obviously know what to expect. So all those questions aren't spinning around in their head. It's important to understand that there's no judgment of any kind involved in this program, and absolutely no sense of failure if it turns out that more than one session is required to move on to the next stage. Everyone's different, and although the process is the same, individual sessions are made to measure to adapt to people's personal individual needs. And that applies to both the quit smoking and the weight loss program. And so one last thing, I found over the years that people tend to fall asleep at least once at some point during the program, during a session. And that doesn't usually matter because your subconscious never sleeps. And so it's still receptive even if you're not. But the fact is that's not something I was trying to do. So one day I decided, since lots of people suffer from insomnia anyway, that I would create and record something to actually make people want to go to sleep. And it was back in the day when CDs were the thing that people listened to. So I produced a bunch of these CDs, which I gave out to people and sold at health fairs. And I still have a few left. And I would like to play you a part of it, the early part of it, just to give you a sense of what hypnotherapy really is like, what happens, what it feels like, what it sounds like. And you're very welcome to just relax, close your eyes, drift off, do whatever you want, go with the flow, do what you feel like doing, okay?
Mhm.
So, here we go.
Should I turn down the lights?
Oh yeah, that would be a nice idea, Sally, thank you.
Denise, let me know if it's too dark to see.
No, I
that's
don't need to
great.
see anything, I just accept to turn this on.
It's fine. It still looks good.
Thank you.
Begin by taking a deep breath in. And as you slowly let it out, just settle this. Let your body go loose. Lazy as you just let go and gently close your eyes. Now focus on and as you breathe, just allow the rest of the body to background. Focus only on the breathing. Notice the temperature of the air that's in. And the different temperature as you move out. And as you continue,
easy, effortless. Just let yourself drift and float deeper and deeper down. Peaceful, drowsy relaxation. And as you breathe in, think of breathing in peace, calm, send the warm energy of your breath anywhere you want, or in any way uncomfortable. Feel it gathering tension, discomfort, any kind, and release. Let it go. Just float away as you breathe out. So the more you breathe, the calmer you feel, the quieter and more peaceful you feel inside. Peaceful and calm, like a lake without ripples. And if any unwanted thoughts come to mind, these too can be let go. Just breathe away as you exhale. Simply acknowledge them without any kind of interaction. And then watch them float slowly out of your mind, out of your awareness, as easily as they drifted in. This is your time. It's time for your mind to be still. It's nice. Yeah.
So that is pretty much what I think the therapy session would start out like. There's this initial kind of getting you to relax and getting you into a deep state of peace and calm before you start to talk about whatever the issues are that need to be dealt with. So I just wanted you to experience that.
It's nice. It's very
Yeah,
calming.
thank you.
It's very meditative, as Denise knows with her practice. So are you going to open up for some questions? And
Yeah, does anyone, I'm pretty
of
much
course,
done,
'cause I
so if
have one.
anybody has any questions, please fire away.
anyone?
Well, I'm definitely interested. Yeah, for sure. So I don't know what.
This can be used, like you say, this is about habits, right? So
It can also be used very effectively for stress control.
yeah, there's so
I have people
many.
who come to me just to for stress relief.
Mhm.
It's very good for that as well as habits.
So I just happened to catch something on television about just some of the habits we all form as far as, there's so many different things, whether it be the eating thing or smoking, like you said, or maybe the inability to kind of stop doing, like
Sure.
busy.
Yeah.
I know I'm one of those. I have a tendency to think I have to be doing something all the time.
Oh, yeah, there's habits of behavior as well.
Yeah, so
Everything is
behavioral,
short.
yeah, it is behavioral. Things of that nature. And I think that sometimes, especially, and I'm gonna say this because we're all women, women have a tendency to do that anyway, thinking that we're the multitaskers, so that's our role. Let's go, let's be
Superwoman.
multitasking. So you're taking care of home, kids, pets,
Right,
work, whatever else.
right.
Um,
Yes, men never get asked to balance home life and work life or taking care of
Very
children.
seldom,
No.
unless
I
they're
know.
the Mr. Moms, which
Right,
is kind of still rare, but yeah, I'm just, I'm thinking out loud and just wondering, you were very clear though, your forte and your specialty and what you've been successful at, of course, is the losing weight and smoking, which are two big, very unhealthy
exactly.
types of habits. So
Exactly.
I get that. Not that stress, because I know not that stress doesn't also kind of play a part with those two in a way, because people sometimes pick those habits up from being stressed.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
just kind of putting it out there, just wondering.
Right. Well, so tell me, like, a lot of times habits are formed from trauma or,
Yeah.
right? So do
Yes.
you address in
Yes.
hypnotherapy, do you address those or do you just rebuild the habit,
No, that's why I said every session is individually focused,
okay.
depending on the person's issues.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's very relevant where the phobia or the fear came from, because a lot
Yeah.
of them come from childhood,
yeah,
something that's passed down from
Right,
parents.
right.
A lot of people who have fears, especially fear of flying is a very common one. You often find that came from a parent.
I didn't used to be afraid of flying, but I am now.
Well,
been
things have
awful.
changed now.
Yeah.
Also, I think most people have that feeling now, actually.
I'm just afraid of the people. I don't want to deal with the
I mean,
people.
I get the pat down every time because I have fake knees and all this hardware in my body and it's awful.
Oh, yeah, so it feels invasive, kind of.
It's gotten a little better, but yeah, it's just,
Yeah, I
it
don't like-
is invasive.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Yeah,
I know.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a toss-up.
Sign of the
Either
times, for
that
sure.
or you go through the X-ray thing. which
Yeah, I
is,
know. Yeah.
Which I don't want to do.
Sign of the times, yeah.
Then you get pulled aside if you're me.
Oh, I've gotten pulled aside and I don't have any, it's just, I don't know what that is all about sometimes, but it happens. I'm like, I don't know what they told me for, but hey.
and it's so crazy. Me and my daughter got pulled aside and it was just her and I, and completely healthy, but then I go through with the wheelchair and my grandkids, we've taken everybody to Disney World and they were just like, go home. I mean,
Yeah, they
they
don't wanna-
barely scanned us. We had
No.
snacks. We had so much. And I was just expecting no, we were through security in Miami in 20 minutes.
Sometimes it's where you are, because I think it happens to be what airport you're into. I've seen
Well,
it.
and they said that
Huge
Miami was one
difference.
of the worst. We went 2.5 hours early and we were
Wow.
through in 20 minutes. 'Cause we
Wow.
had the wheelchair, so we had to go through
You'd think, because that's an
you
international
know,
airport.
and they were so friendly and so just okay. I said, yeah, they just wanted us out of Florida, take kids home.
So, Ann, do you have a practice here in Albuquerque?
I make home visits. I do come to Albuquerque.
That's a great question.
You do home visits?
Yeah.
I know, huh?
Did you bring cards for us?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of cards over there, and some other information. Please help yourself to anything that you
Okay, thank
might be
you.
interested in.
So based on an evaluation is kind of what I'm picturing set up, then you,
I forgot to mention that everybody starts out with a consultation.
okay,
They don't commit. I don't want people to commit. Apart from anything else, I want to meet somebody to make sure that we feel comfortable with each other and feel that we can work together. That's very important.
Mhm.
But I start out with a consultation. I explain how hypnotherapy works. I talk to them about their individual issues and what it is they want to do and what they want to deal with. And then they decide if that's something that they then want to do, and then they would make an appointment. They don't start out by making an appointment.
Okay.
So, glad you asked that. Thank you.
And I have a question.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So I actually am a big believer in hypnotherapy. I also do tapping. I like the idea of accessing the subconscious. But sometimes these concerns are so deep, we don't know what the issue is. We don't know if it's something that was passed on from our parents or what might be the main cause. Do you need to know that? Because sometimes as you go through these sessions, maybe it comes up, but what if it's pushed down so far that it's difficult to get to?
Well, that's also a very good question. There are times when it doesn't actually matter where it comes from, that it can be dealt with without knowing what the cause is. If you know that there is a cause, even if you can identify it or not, it is possible to do a particular procedure, which is actually quite well known, I understand, in psychiatry anyway, where you take the person back to the time when that occurred, when that happened, the time when they started feeling that fear, and you work around that time and that incident, and there are certain elements, certain ways that you can approach that and deal with it that way.
Great, thank you.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Because I think so often some of the fear of going for help, right, is the fear of bringing things up you don't necessarily want to deal with. So,
That's why we stuff it down.
That's
right?
That's right, but it is better to deal with it, because otherwise it'll manifest in some other way.
No, absolutely. But I mean, I feel like, well, even with tapping, which I've dabbled with, or, taken some, done a few things with, which I'm excited Denise does this, but, sometimes you just, I don't know, kind of need to peel away at things. We all know that they're there. We all know that they exist, but overwhelming to just, okay, yeah, this happened, Cool.
No, that's true. I mean, there's
It's like
such
an onion.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
It really is.
it can be, that's true. And it can sometimes take a while, because as I said, the subconscious can only deal with one issue at a time.
Mhm.
So it is sometimes that you start out with this and then it goes deeper because there's something else. I actually had somebody call me, somebody who's stopping smoking. And I had just done a stop smoking session with her. And she called me almost hysterical the next morning and said, I just realized that I smoke because that's a barrier against the world, because things I don't want to deal with. That's my protection. And so she came back in and we dealt with that. So, things do come up unexpectedly, for sure.
Because it brings it to your forefront. So you really
Right.
start, I guess, kind of like you're saying, peeling it away or trying to figure it out, in your own
Right.
conscious time is
Exactly.
when you're kind of like trying to help
Right.
the situation.
Right. And it can
That
be,
makes sense. That makes total sense, of course, because
it can be a painful
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Confronting things that you weren't aware of or didn't want to look at or didn't want to deal with.
mhm,
But it's always better when you actually get to the other side.
mhm.
The process is not always the most comfortable. I mean, every smoker wants to be a non-smoker. They don't want to stop smoking.
Right,
They want
right,
to be on the other side of the divide.
right,
They don't want to go through the process.
right.
Well, I think oftentimes we are like, okay, this is my problem, right? This is what happened to me, so now I overeat, right?
Oh, right.
So we
You can
try to
always find a
self-diagnose.
justification,
Yeah,
always.
there's-
Every bad habit can be justified.
Right,
absolutely.
and this, even self-diagnosis, yeah, I fell off my bike when I was 5, or,
Right.
whatever. real trauma, real whatever. And so we can attach everything, and often it is something different, I have found,
Right,
you know.
true.
Mhm.
It's a journey.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank
Thank you for
you.
coming.
Mhm. Very informative, has a lot, there's so much.
Yes.
And Anna, we are really happy when you are here because it is another tool. We want to encourage, you know, I was hoping more of our practitioners would be here, but it's nice that, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
and supporting
What a
Viola.
great,
That's really
absolutely.
great that you came and supported. And Denise, you're always supportive. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
thanks,
I
Denise.
just think it's really important. And I'll just keep plugging away at all of that because that's what I do. And, you know, I would, again, for whatever reasons, you know, we'll make sure that this information gets passed along to, I mean, I would rather they were here in person, but for whatever reason, they're not. So I will make sure this information gets passed along to the nurse practitioners, the
You're welcome
the
to take copies
MAs.
of that article,
Yeah,
which explains how it works, and
I will.
and a copy of this thing too.
I will, because I think it's important that they just kind of keep that as another tool,
Right.
right? It's,
Exactly.
it's another tool. I mean,
Do you guys have RNs here? Oh,
Nurse practitioner.
nurse practitioners.
well, I'm an RN.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Nice.
but I'm not a hypnotherapist, but I did oncology for years.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's a big one.
I helped a lot of people transition. And
Oh.
I just
Wow.
did a lot of this, you know, speaking and breathing in calm and kind and
Because you were,
loving and
because of the terminal side
Oh,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah, oncology. I've worked on oncology floors and that's very hard. So good for you. God bless you for that. That's a beautiful
Oh.
gift. Really,
I can't
it's
think when
nice.
I want to get a job, but I want to get a job somewhere that I like. More
You're
low key.
happy. Yeah,
Good to know.
yeah, I
Just-
know.
Plant that seed. That's good. So thank you again for being here. And as time goes on, you know, I know this is probably your second one in 2 years. As time goes on, you know, again, the objective for us is to make sure that everybody here knows that this is a tool that we have for our patients that are at that level of nothing's working, the typical stuff. And I'm one of those people too. I'm not a big, diets are kind of just for me, I just don't understand why. I mean, eating healthy is great. I don't think eating healthy and diet are the same thing.
No,
So that's
No.
just me.
and diets are,
First 3 letters.
the reason why
Yeah.
the reason why diets don't work is because a diet tells you a list of things that you can eat and can't. eat,
Shouldn't do,
whatever
and yeah,
Should do.
it's
and
it's
shouldn't
like
do.
the last thing that someone's gonna really follow.
And, right, and if you really are determined, some people are able to follow that and do that. It's not something you can do for the rest of your life.
Right, so you
So-
revert back.
So you lose the weight that you want to lose, you lose the 10 pounds over 2 or 3 months or however long you do the diet, then you have to come off the diet.
Mhm.
And then your subconscious kicks in and says, yes, now we can go back to eating what we really want to eat. And that's why people put back
Yeah, there you go. That makes
the weight
sense.
that they've lost, plus a bit more. It's not a way to live the rest of your life.
Right, right. So yes, there's a purpose, but it's not something that you should really, yeah, it's not something that you should expect that's a miracle
Right.
pill or cure or whatever.
It's not something you
It's-
can live with for the rest of your
Right,
life.
that makes total sense. Okay, well, again, thank you. And again, over this time, because it's been such a hard time with pandemic, we will be having this. Well, it's not going to go away. It's hybrid, but you know, once things pick up and people start feeling safer, I think we'll start seeing a better all around
And I
attendance
think-
and turnout.
I hope so.
You know, communication with us.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We'll talk about this.
Yes, we
just-
will. Yes.
Yeah, just getting the word out there and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Because I think it gets out to certain
yes.
public, but I don't know if it's just, you know, I don't know what the association is, you know.
Or the
we'll-
disconnect.
Yeah, what the disconnect is. I'm not quite sure.
Because she does a beautiful job. Everything is there. And I don't know how
Yeah,
many.
I
but-
mean, and there's other sites we go on and there's, other places I go in person and talk about it and leave flyers. And so it's,
Well, people have to be in the right place in their life where they
Yes.
want to do
yes,
this.
yes,
And they also have to be in the right state of mind where they are open to it
Yeah.
and want to do it, because if they don't, as I said, it's not gonna work.
right.
But I said, I always start out with a consultation, because so then I explain to them how it does work and what to expect. And then they can decide if it sounds like something they want to do or not, but nobody has to call up and make an appointment. That's too much of a commitment.
Yeah, I get
especially
it.
if you don't know anything about it.
Well, it is an education and it's great. And what's wonderful is that what's nice about the Zoom is that it's recorded. So now we take and Denise edits and places these on our YouTube channel.
Oh, I'm glad you said edit. That's good. Thank you, Denise.
So that you'll be able to have access to that. And I think it's good that we share that. And that's something that we are able to do periodically too. So that's something you and I can talk about as well. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Really nice of
Thank
everybody.
you very much.
Yeah.